Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Katie Jones, UTRF's Marketing Coordinator, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar about methods of commercializing intellectual property beyond patents. If you're new to tech transfer or just looking for more information on commercializing UT innovations, we hope you'll walk away with a better understanding of licensing of patented and non-patented technologies and the services that UTRF provides to help innovators across UT campuses and institutes. We're excited to have with us today presenters from both of our UTRF offices, Dr. Lakita Cavin and Dr. Kusum Rathore. UTRF Senior Staff Attorney Dr. Lakita Cavin joins us from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center office in Memphis. She's responsible for managing and licensing university technology, as well as preparing and reviewing research-related contracts. She also provides legal support and advice to our UTRF licensing staff. Dr. Kusum Rathore is a technology manager from the multi-campus office in Knoxville, where she focuses on the commercialization of technologies in areas of biochemistry and molecular biology, microbiology, and biomedical engineering. Kusum brings over a decade of research experience in the life sciences to UTRF. I'll now turn things over to Lakita to begin the conversation on how technology transfer is not just for patents.
Thank you, Katie, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, where we will have a basic discussion about the transfer and licensing of university technology beyond patents. So when you think about licensing university technology, the first thing that likely comes to mind might be the word patent. And you may think that the technology needs to fall into the patent or patentable category before it can be licensed out. Well, we're here to tell you and also show you today that a technology does not have to be patentable or patented to have value and be licensed. So some of you likely have technology that you've discovered or created that's valuable, and it doesn't fall into the patent category, but can possibly be licensed nonetheless. So when we talk about tech transfer and licensing, what exactly are we talking about? Well, tech transfer is the process of moving UT innovations from UT to an external partner to turn those innovations into usable products and services. And that's the goal that we have for that partner that we engage with. We want them to turn those innovations into products and services. And that transfer is done via licensing, and that's the process whereby we grant a party, a licensee, certain rights to a technology. And when we grant those rights, we are granting rights for them to use the technology for a particular purpose or purposes. They get to use it for a certain period of time. And in exchange for us granting them those rights, they give us some monetary consideration in return. So, with the licensing process, what we're granting is rights to some type of property. And that property can be either tangible research property or it may be intangible property, which we refer to as intellectual property or IP. With tangible property, we're talking about items that are produced in the course of everyday research, and these items have some physical attributes around them. And with intellectual property, these things have no physical attributes, but they can be owned and transferred to others, just like any other type of property. IP also refers to those creations of the human mind or our intellect. And it also refers to a category of intangible exclusive rights that protect those creations that we create in our minds or from our minds. And so when we think about IP, probably the main types that we think about are patents, copyright, trademark, and trade secrets. So this is a snapshot. This chart here gives us a snapshot at the main types of intellectual property. So let's just briefly look at these and see what's protected and what makes each one protectable. So with patents, they protect product compositions and processes. And the way that a patent is obtained on an item is through an application and examination process. And if that process is successful, then ultimately the patent will be granted or issued to the owner or the applicant. And patent protection lasts for 20 years from the filing date of the application. And the application process, that's going to be handled through the USPTO, the US Patent and Trademark Office. And what makes something eligible for patent protection? Well, that item, that composition or process has to be useful, novel, and it cannot be obvious to make in light of existing technology that's in a similar category. With copyright, that protects original works of authorship, and it's automatically protected once it's created. Um, um, Protection automatically attaches to it, but there is a process by which one can register their copyrighted work. And there are several reasons for registration of a copyright that we won't get into today, but there are other sort of, I guess, added protections, if you will, by registering a copyright. And it lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years after that. And this application is submitted to the Copyright Office, the US Copyright Office. And what makes something eligible for copyright protection is that that work has to be original to the author claiming the copyright protection. With trademarks protect the identifying marks or symbols of a business. And just like copyright, its protection is also automatic upon creation and use of it. So once someone creates that mark and start to use it, that really puts protection around it. And again, just like copyright, it can also be registered to give some added protections. And it's going to be protected for as long as it's being used by the business or the trademark owner. And it's applied for through the USPTO, just like patents are. And the eligibility for registration of a trademark is that it cannot be the same as, or it cannot be likely to be confused with an existing mark that's out there. So, it really needs to have some originality around it. And then with trade secrets are going to protect any information or secrets of a business. And protection for this is obtained by keeping that particular information a secret. So you have to maintain the secret. And the protection around a trade secret can last for as long as the secret is kept. And there is no formal mechanism through which protection is obtained because it's obtained by keeping it a secret. There's no application process for that. So probably the most popular and most licensed intellectual property or technology in general is patents. But as our topic today indicates, tech transfer and licensing can and do often go beyond just patents. So other things that that are licensed and that we actually do license include research tools, and that comprises that tangible property that I mentioned earlier. Um, we also can license copyrights. We can license apps, which are created for use on mobile devices. And we can also license data rights, which are those which comprises rights to certain data, and know-how, which is knowledge and skills on how to do a particular thing. So all of these are non-patented technologies that can be licensed, and most of these types we have licensed. So next, we're going to go through some examples of technologies that we have licensed, including both patented and non-patented technologies. And maybe you'll find that, it's likely that you've developed something that may fit into one of these categories, and you can let us know about it. So now Kusum will go through some examples of different types of technologies that we've licensed. She's going to go through those with you.
Hey, thank you, Lakita. So yeah, now we will dig a little deep into different types of IP and how they can be licensed. So starting with patents, patents are legal rights given to us by the US Constitution to exclude others from from making, using, selling, or offering to sell or for sale or importing a claimed invention. So basically, patent is a legal document that provides you monopoly to exclude other from using your invention, not necessarily giving you rights to practice your invention. Getting a patent issued can take up to 3 to 5 years. The life of a patent is 20 years, and it is an expensive process to get a patent issued. There are several types of patents based on what IP we are trying to protect. For example, a utility patent protects a novel product or processes. An example shown here is the non-woven fabric used to make the N95 masks. And these types of patents give you exclusivity for 20 years. The design patent protects how something looks, and you protect your IP for 14 years. Plant patents are there to protect novel varieties of plants that can be reproduced asexually. The lifespan of these types of patents are for 20 years as well. So now we will look into an example of a patented technology that has been licensed by UTRF. So getting a little bit into details, soybean is one of the top 5 crops produced worldwide, and US is it's one of the largest crops produced in the United States. In fact, United States exported over 28 billion worth of soybean in 2018. So even though it's a very robust, highly produced crop, there are various types of pathogens that attack soybean. The number one being soybean cyst nematode. So soybean cyst nematode is a plant parasitic nematode threatening the United States and worldwide crop production since early 50s. And at times it has reduced the production of the crop to 75% of the total yield. So it's a big factor that plays in the soybean industry. So Dr. Tariq Hivizi from the Department of Plant Sciences identified several novel genes that provided resistance, again, the soybean cyst nematode in the crops. So once we had protected the IP, we began marketing the technology, by which I mean identifying the right companies, potential partners, and reaching out to them. So for this technology in particular, we reached out to over 200 unique contacts in 52 different plant biotech companies. We had several discussions with a bunch of these companies. We executed 4 non-disclosure agreements to talk more details with these companies. UTRF also funded a maturation grant with Dr. Hivizi to collect more relevant data for the companies. Finally, once we started the negotiation process of the license, we had a visit after several discussions from GDM Seed's chief researcher who visited UTIA to better understand the technology. And finally, we were able to execute the license for this technology with a Brazilian company called GDM Seeds in 2020. And this is not generally, it takes a long time, but it's not, the process doesn't end at the license. We actually developed a really good long-term partnership with this company, and they have been very helpful to evaluate these other technologies from UTRF and provide a very important feedback. So when you think that your research is not patentable, no problem. There is a whole entire category of technologies that can be licensed without patenting. There are other ways to protect IP like copyrighted work, software, and artwork. I will discuss some of the examples as we go along. And then also there is a whole entire category of research tools that are of interest to several companies. And Lakita will come back and tell us a little bit more about that. So first, going into copyright. Copyright is a type of intellectual property that gives its owner the exclusive right to make copies of the creative work, usually for a limited amount of time. The creative work can be software, drawings, or various forms of literary, artistic, educational, or musical works. Looking into an example of copyright protected work and how it was licensed by UTRF, is this example for peer network counseling text software, which is an automated personalized text delivery program This software was licensed to a startup that was formed around this technology called Behavioral Labs. This company helps to deliver high quality, on demand, evidence based behavioral health programming to reduce cannabis and tobacco uses and reduce hazardous drinking among young adults. The company was formed by two entrepreneurs from Oregon and Professor Mike Mason from UTK's College of Social Work. Another example of copyright is artwork. And here you see the artwork created by the Clarence Brown Theater at UTK as a commissioned work for a play called People Where They Are. And this artwork is licensed to the play production company as well. Another form of copyright is software as a service. So this type of software licensing and delivery model is in which the software is licensed on a subscription basis and is centrally hosted on a specific server. UTRF is working with our inventors, Dr. Zhopang Li and Lisa Moret, who have developed this software service called VVisit Sim that helps train healthcare workers and students for providing virtual healthcare. UTRF can also help you in licensing mobile-based apps. Here are two examples. The SIPS, the Stimulated Electronic Fetal Monitoring app, is designed to view and share fetal heart rate and contraction charts. This helps nurses and students to learn the basis of fetal monitoring in a fun and intuitive way. The other example is an app called Speak for Myself. It is a communication app designed for patients who are unable to speak due to mechanical ventilation, tracheostomy, or other communication disabilities. I would also like to mention that UTRF can do direct sales with our click-through licensing on our website. And UTRF has accounts on the Google Play and Apple Store to host various apps. Next, we will jump into research tools, and Lakita will let us know more about what they are and how they can be licensed.
Thanks, Kusum. So back to some other examples of non-patented technologies, starting with research tools. So research tools are the tangible materials, and we've alluded to that earlier. And the primary use for research tools is to enable scientific discovery. And so here are some examples of research tools that are developed in labs and are often used in research labs. And so they encompass things such as cell lines, antibodies, various reagents, plasmids, chemical probes, and animal models. And so for these, patent protection is not necessary in order for us to license them. That's not to say that a patent cannot be applied for these, but it's just not necessary, and we can license them nonetheless. The other things about research tools is that they are typically licensed on a non-exclusive basis, which means that we can license these to multiple parties, so multiple users can have access to these research tools. And we license them for research use and as well as for commercial use. And so when a company licenses these for commercial use, they typically are going to use the research tools to help them develop some type of a drug, maybe a drug or some other type of therapy. They also may use the research tool in developing an assay or some other type of screening. So these are ways that research tools are going to be used when we license them. So one great example of a research tool that we've had success in licensing is the VSV platform developed by Dr. Michael Witt at the Health Science Center. So VSV stands for vesicular stomatitis virus. And this virus mainly infects cattle, horses, and pigs, but Dr. Witt discovered several decades ago that this virus platform can be useful in studying other viruses. So it is really a surrogate virus system, and it consists of pseudotype virus, backbone plasmids, and cell lines. So this surrogate system, it allows researchers to study highly pathogenic viruses under standard BSL-2 containment. So the researchers can work with or study a virus of interest without actually handling that harmful virus. And with this VSV platform, the researchers are able to study viral entry via incorporation of viral proteins into a replicating or non-replicating virus. And so with this system, what it does, it can readily assemble the surface proteins of other viruses, the virus of interest, such as the spike protein in COVID-19. And so the surrogate virus, it binds to the cells and it enters the cells, but once it gets inside, it's not becoming more infectious or releasing infectious virus, but instead it's producing a reporter protein that's easily analyzed. And so it's the protein that's expressed by the virus of interest that's being studied. And that's what this system allows for. And so one area or application where the VSV system is useful in particular is in vaccine development. And I'll show you in a second how it's been used a lot lately for that. So it's useful in determining how well a vaccine or a vaccine candidate is working, so how efficacious the vaccine is. It's also useful in analyzing the ability of antibodies to neutralize the virus and inhibit infection. So whether it's serum antibodies or antibodies that are produced as a result of a vaccine, this system can be used to analyze the ability of that antibody to neutralize a virus. So in this assay using VSV, when the VSV system is mixed with antibodies or the vaccine, viral protein expression is measured. So, for example, the spike protein in COVID, so that's what's going to be measured. So, if the assay shows that there is no protein expression, then that means that the vaccine is working well. So, this system has been very useful in developing vaccine assays, and it's useful in developing virus assays in general. So over the years, UTRF has entered into multiple licenses for this VSV platform. But since the COVID pandemic, the request for this material and our licensing of it has significantly increased. So since last March up until now, we've entered into licenses with 7 different entities who have requested this VSV platform. We've also been able to provide it to users through one of our distribution partners, Carafast, and I'll talk a little bit more about Carafast in a second. But during this time, we have provided the VSV materials to over 170 users, and that represents both public and private users in over 30 countries around the world. And this includes both Pfizer and Moderna, who have used this platform as they develop their respective COVID vaccines. And Dr. Witt has worked directly with Moderna to provide research services and technical assistance around this material. So kudos to Dr. Witt for playing a role in this huge endeavor. So this is a great example of how valuable and useful a research material can be. And I will say that although UTRF did obtain a patent on this particular platform early on, that patent has expired and it's not the patent that we license. We're licensing the right to use the material for commercial use. And so now a little bit about Carafast. So Carafast is one of our licensees, one of our distribution partners that we have a license with for them to provide various research materials from the university. They can provide these materials across the globe. So once a material is added to our license with Carafast, they market it to the global research community and they provide it to the users who purchase it through them. And so when that happens, we receive revenues for their, when they provide the materials and they receive money, so they share revenues with us. So if you have a research material that you use in the lab and you think others in the research community may find it useful, please tell us about it and we may be able to make it available through our Carafast license. Another great example of a research tool where we have had licensing success, it's a cell line, the K562 cell line. So this is a human leukemia cell line that was isolated by Dr. Carmen Lazio 50 years ago. And this cell line is grown from a sample of pleural effusion from that leukemia patient. Now, the current cells that are used, they are derived from that original line, but it's not necessarily that original line because the cells have undergone extensive chromosomal evolution, but nonetheless, these cells have proven to be very useful and valuable. So people have come to us in recent years after reading that original publication describing this cell line. So they've come to us to license the cell line. And what they've been using it for is to establish a feeder cell line for natural killer cells that we produce in our bodies. And so what they're doing is they're using it to develop immunotherapies, for example, in cancer. And so over the past few years, we've executed licenses with three different entities for this cell line. So that was pretty eye-opening for us. And that really let us know that, research tools really are very useful and very valuable, and people do use them and need them. And they are using them to develop therapies and products that are going to ultimately, hopefully, be used in the marketplace and saving lives. So again, as we see, research tools have proven to be a great resource for tech transfer and licensing. So here we showcase a research tool that we license through our website, through our express licensing platform. So this is the Toxo Antigen. It's a wholesale antigen and it's used for a modified agglutination test, or the TGMAT. And so this is used for in vitro and or non-human diagnostic purposes. And this testing kit has been licensed over 20 times through our express licensing website, or our express licensing page on our website. So again, this is another example of our success in licensing research tools. And this also shows you that there are different ways in which we can provide licenses to users. So not just through our traditional method of negotiating back and forth with the licensee, but we have this format available on our website, which is like a click-through license for them to purchase the material or whatever it is that they're wanting to purchase from us that's available on the website. So we've seen great examples of how research developments can be licensed without a patent being involved. And there are several advantages of licensing non-patented technologies when compared to patents. So for one, there can be minimal to almost no cost associated with protecting these types of technologies. Um, and so, for example, with research tools, we don't necessarily, or we don't file patent application for these. So there's not going to be any patent costs associated with that. Now we can file for patent protection, but it's not necessary. So we don't do that. So we eliminate the costs that would be associated with protecting a research tool. If a copyright is registered, which we can or we don't have to, because remember, copyright protection is automatic, but there are reasons for taking it through the registration process. But if that's done, that application fee is very small, so it's only about $50 to do so. So again, very low costs associated with protection. And with the other items that are listed here, there's not going to be any protection filed for these, because there's no reason to or no way to protect them because it's not necessary. So no protection costs involved with those items either. The other thing about non-patented technologies is that the duration of a license for these types of technologies, in most cases, is not going to be limited by the duration of protection, especially with the research tools. So again, using research tools as an example. So since we don't really file for patent protection on research tools, we're not going to be limited to by how long the patent is going to, the patent life of that item is going to be. So remember, patents are only good for 20 years from the filing date. So that means that we would only be able to license that particular item for, no longer than 20 years, for the most part. There are exceptions in some cases. But if there's no patent in place, we don't have to worry about the term expiring or not being able to have the license for a certain number of years. It could potentially go on forever. So you're not limited by how long the protection lasts. And the only exception on here would be copyright. But again, copyright lasts for a long time. So that gives you a long term of a license as well. And with these other items on here, again, no protection in place. So no duration of protection that you have to worry about. So again, the duration of a license for these types of technologies can potentially be forever or almost forever. And the other thing about non-patented technologies is that more often than patents, these technologies can be licensed to, and usually are going to be licensed to multiple parties, meaning that we're licensing them non-exclusively. And you can license patents non-exclusively as well. But again, like I state here, more often than patents, more than likely, these are going to be licensed to multiple parties. So you get to take a bite at the apple many, many times. So we've shown you examples of technologies that we've had success in licensing over the years, and I hope you have a better idea of what types of technologies that we do receive into our office and that we've actually licensed. And so here we show what our commercialization activity has looked like over the last 3 fiscal years. And let me just clarify that these numbers represent activity for both patented and non-patented technologies. I know we're kind of focusing on non-patented things today, but these results represent everything that we've commercialized. So for fiscal years 18 through 20, we've received over 550 new invention disclosures. We have filed over 300 patent applications. There have been 93 US patents that have been issued. We have entered into 96 new license and option agreements. And from the UT innovations, there have been 11 new startup companies formed around those innovations. And in terms of revenues, we have received over $7.6 million in license related revenues, or these licenses have represented $7.6 million in revenues. So do you have an idea or a technology that you have developed that falls into a category that we have discussed here today? Well, we certainly hope so. And, if nothing else, we hope that we've given you something to think about as you are working and continue to work hard every day in your labs. So if you do have something, we would encourage you to submit that idea to us. And we have our online portal where you can do that at idea.tennessee.edu. It's a secure portal and it's fast and it's easy to use. So please submit your ideas to us, or you can contact us to discuss it beforehand. But we would definitely like to know about the things that you are working on. And when we do have licensing success with your technology, we share the revenue that's generated from the licensing. And this chart here shows you our revenue sharing policy and how we share back with you. So for the first $5,000 that we receive for licensing a technology, all of that money goes back to the inventors. And that's going to be from gross revenue that's collected. But after the first 5,000 and up to $1 million, then we share back what's considered net revenue. So we will start to recoup some of our expenses that have been associated with protecting that technology. And so we share 40% of the net revenue with the inventors. And then at this point, we also start to share back with your respective departments and campuses. So 15% to each of the department and the campus, and then we keep 30%, and that helps to fund our next round of technologies that come through. And then once the revenue is over $1 million, the revenue sharing is 35% to the inventors, 25% to each of the department and to the campus, and then 25% to UTRF. And this is our UTRF team. So we're the ones that you would be working with. So we do encourage you to contact us if you have questions about what you're working on or just in general, how we operate and what it is that we do. So we do encourage you to reach out to us. And you may contact us at each of our respective offices. So these are the numbers for both our Knoxville and Memphis office, and also listed is our main email. So we thank you all for listening today, and now we will take any questions that you have.
Okay, so to start off, the question is, if I don't get a patent, can someone steal my research?
I can start answering that one. I think Lakita gave several examples that there is possibility of your research that can be licensed instead without being patented, and there are still material rights associated to with your research. So there's still some protection, so nobody can really steal your work. They still need to come to UTRF to get the rights of the materials that are being used. So it's very unlikely, but if we do think that there is something that is very easy to reproduce, we always try to patent the technologies.
Our next question, if UTRF licenses my research tools, can I still use them in my lab?
Most certainly, yes, you can. So you are not restricted from doing so. In fact, our licenses protect your ability to do so. So we always put a statement in our license agreements that because we're giving the licensee rights to use the material, we always reserve the right for the university, i.e. the researchers, to continue to use that material. And we also reserve the right for the university to share it with other academics as well. So you absolutely can still use your research material.
Thank you again for joining today's discussion. If you have any further questions about technology transfer or any of the topics covered in today's talk, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can email us at utrf@tennessee.edu or reach out at our website, utrf.tennessee.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.